Beneath the blazing cliffs of Dinosaur National Monument, the desert keeps its silence. Tourists gaze at the famous wall of bones, more than 1,500 fossils still locked in stone. But few realize what lies beyond that wall. Dozens of forgotten dig sites scattered through the canyons, long buried by wind and time. The sandstone glows gold under the morning sun, the air dry and sharp as glass. Wind sweeps across the gullies where long dead rivers once flowed, carrying whispers of history. Every shadow hides the possibility of discovery or loss. When the light shifts, the ground seems to shimmer with memory. In the early 1900s, this landscape held more than bones. It held opportunity, chaos, and secrets that science would never fully reclaim. Some fossils vanished before they were ever studied. Others left no record of where they came from. The archives show crates labeled Jensen Quarry or Utah 911 that never arrived at any museum. Somewhere in the desert, fossils were taken, sold, or lost forever. Today, paleontologists are retracing the steps of Earl Douglass and the teams that followed him, not to find new dinosaurs, but to recover missing chapters of the story he began. What happened to the lost quarries of Dinosaur National Monument, and could their treasures still lie beneath the redder earth of Utah? When Earl Douglass struck the first vertebra in 1909, he ignited a new age of fossil fever. The Carnegie Quarry became world famous, but the rush soon spread far beyond his original site. Miners, prospectors, and amateur diggers arrived from Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana, chasing the next bone rush. By 1911, there were more than a dozen small quarries operating around Jensen. Some were legitimate research digs under museum contracts, but others were run by freelancers hoping to sell fossils for profit. The area became a patchwork of excavation claims, many unrecorded. Letters from Douglass mention neighboring pits and unlabeled shipments. Local ranchers dug up bones from the same sandstone layers and sold them to collectors in Denver and Chicago. Newspapers of the time described the region as the new gold fields of paleontology. But this surge came at a time without proper mapping or documentation. Fossils lost their scientific value. What Douglass called the Cathedral of Bones was slowly being dismantled, piece by piece, before the world even understood its importance. In 1923, a Carnegie Museum inventory listed 227 catalog numbers from the Utah shipments that had no associated fossils. Some crates had been broken during transport, others disappeared entirely between the railheads at Dragon and Pittsburgh. Douglass's meticulous records suddenly stopped matching the museum's inventory. A telegram from 1912 reads Shipment No. 33 arrived incomplete, 2 barrels missing, possibly diverted to Chicago. Another memo mentions fragments retrieved from a burned freight car near Denver. Out of nearly 1,000 collected bones, hundreds were untraceable. What happened to them? Some scientists suspected careless packing or theft. Others believed Douglass's assistants sold fossils privately during funding shortages. In those days, fossil trading was common. Even museum staff sometimes sold duplicates to wealthy patrons. One Denver newspaper from 1915 advertised authentic dinosaur bones from Utah, $25 per set. Whether authentic or not, these bones represented the quiet erosion of a priceless record. As one modern curator put it, we didn't just lose fossils, we lost data time, environment, and story. Then came the Great Depression. With funds gone, excavation stopped, the desert reclaimed its silence. Tents collapsed, crates rotted, and trenches filled with sand. When World War II arrived, even the scientists left. The Carnegie Museum redirected resources to military research. The quarries around Jensen, once bustling with voices and hammers, were abandoned. For 15 years, the fossils waited under shifting dunes and eroding cliffs. Locals still spoke of the old bone holes, but maps were lost, markers blown away. A 1942 Park Service report noted Most original quarry sites cannot be relocated with confidence. Many fossils exposed on the surface crumbled under decades of freeze and thaw. Others were washed away entirely by flash floods. By the time the war ended, the fossil beds had become ghost sites, erased not by intent, but by neglect. As one historian later wrote, "Nature reclaimed what science forgot." In the 1960s, paleontologists returned to Dinosaur National Monument with new eyes and better tools. The National Park Service had preserved the main quarry, but rumors persisted of lost pits scattered through Cub Creek and Brush Creek. Armed with old photos, aerial maps, and Douglass's journals, geologists searched the hills for evidence. What they found astonished them: half-buried timbers, rusted pickaxes, plaster fragments, and faded signs carved into stone. 1911, Douglass Crew. Beneath the sand lay remnants of forgotten dig sites. In one pit, they found shattered bones of sauropods and fragments of plaster jackets that had hardened around fossils a half-century earlier. A few small pieces were salvaged vertebrae, ribs, and teeth, but the majority had already turned to dust. The team documented everything: the angle of the layers, the thickness of the silt, the presence of horsehair fibers in the plaster, a sign of early 20th century fieldwork. They even uncovered boot prints, fossilized in dried clay, likely from Douglass's men. Yet, the rediscovery was not in vain. By analyzing soil chemistry, scientists confirmed subtle mineral differences that mapped the original flow of Jurassic floodplains. Those decayed fragments, though scientifically small, helped reconstruct an ancient ecosystem stretching from Utah to New Mexico. Even the ruins of lost quarries had stories left to tell. Every discovery leaves a paper trail, unless the papers vanish too. When historians reopened Douglass's archives in the 1980s, they found that entire pages of his field ledgers were missing. The gaps corresponded precisely to the years when multiple side quarries were active. Some believe the pages were removed after his death, perhaps by assistants who wanted to keep secret locations from rival collectors. Others speculated that Douglass himself destroyed them, fearing the fossil rush would bring vandalism. Among the surviving notebooks, a few cryptic references remain: Quarry B, 2 miles east, fine material, mix of Diplodocus and Stegosaurus, no coordinates, no sketches. Using ultraviolet light. Archivists recently recovered faint pencil lines on one water-stained page, contours, resembling the valley east of Split Mountain. GPS overlay suggests an unrecorded quarry once existed there. The site today lies under 20 feet of alluvium. If fossils still rest there, they are entombed beyond reach. As one paleontologist said, Douglass documented everything, but even he had secrets worth protecting. Sometimes the missing fossils reappear, but in the wrong hands. In 1989, a French curator cataloging a museum basement in Paris found a sauropod vertebra labeled Carnegie Quarry 912. The code didn't match any known specimen in Pittsburgh. Later, a museum in Chicago discovered an Allosaurus tooth with identical handwriting, but a mismatched tag. Tracing them led to an unexpected trail. During the 1920s, a Pittsburgh art dealer had bought duplicates from a former Carnegie preparator and sold them overseas. At least 7 of those bones were later confirmed to belong to the Utah collection. Further investigations in the 2000s revealed more anomalies: a rib in Berlin bearing the same varnish used in early Carnegie labs, a partial femur in Madrid with resin fingerprints matching Douglass's preservation style. Each relic was a breadcrumb from a century-old puzzle. For decades, they sat unrecognized in European museums, mislabeled and misplaced. Only modern isotope analysis revealed their origin. It was as if the fossils themselves had been wandering, waiting for someone to bring them home. Such discoveries highlight how easily history scatters. Each bone that travels without a record erases part of the puzzle. A single vertebra in Paris, a rib in London, a tooth in Chicago, all fragments of the same dinosaur, divided by oceans and decades. As fossil collecting became commercialized in the late 20th century, the quiet trade turned into a global market. Skeletons fetched millions at auctions. Wealthy buyers in Europe and Asia competed for specimens, many originating from the American West. Utah and Colorado became hotspots again, not for research, but for profit. Fossils dug from public land appeared in private catalogs labeled provenance uncertain. In 2005, an entire Camarasaurus skull was seized in a Paris sale, traced back to the Morrison strata near Jensen. Experts estimate that for every fossil in a museum, another lies hidden in a private vault. These black market trades not only rob science of knowledge, but also rewrite ownership. Earl Douglass believed fossils belong to everyone, to future generations, not collectors. His dream was preservation through public display. To see his legacy distorted into commerce is a modern tragedy. As one park ranger said, "The wall remains open to the world, but the world keeps closing its hands." Today, technology is giving scientists a second chance to find what was lost. Using LiDAR scans, ground-penetrating radar, and historical GIS mapping, teams from the U.S. Geological Survey and the Carnegie Museum are tracing the ghost lines of old dig sites. By layering Douglass's field sketches over modern satellite imagery, researchers have identified at least 8 potential lost quarries buried under sediment. In 2018, one of them, dubbed Quarry B, yielded a cluster of fossilized rib fragments consistent with the 9/11 notes. New drone surveys now reveal subtle depressions and color anomalies in the sandstone, matching the positions of forgotten excavation pits. High-resolution photogrammetry captures even faint shovel marks preserved in compacted clay. To visualize these sites, digital artists reconstruct them in 3D. Every timber, tool, and rock layer aligned with Douglass's handwriting. The result is an interactive time capsule where modern science meets old ambition. Plans are underway to re-excavate one in 2026, not to claim new dinosaurs, but to reconstruct the original story. What excites scientists most isn't the bones, it's the data layer orientation, mineral makeup, and sediment history. In those details lies the map of an ancient river that once flowed across the Jurassic Plains. The lost quarries are no longer just mysteries, they are targets for resurrection. A century after Earl Douglass's hammer first struck sandstone, the desert still hides its secrets. The famous Wall of Bones stands as proof of what we preserved. The lost quarries remind us of what we forgot. Not every discovery survives, not every story is told, but the pursuit itself, the act of searching, of remembering, keeps the spirit of exploration alive. Each missing fossil is more than a specimen. It's a voice silenced mid-sentence. Together, they form the unspoken half of Earth's autobiography. As the wind moves across Split Mountain, it whispers through the cracks in stone like breath through time. In the end, the mystery of the lost quarries is not just about bones, it is about legacy, memory, and the fragile thread that connects one generation of seekers to the next. If Earl Douglass could walk these canyons again, he would not mourn the bones that vanished. He would listen to the silence, read the rocks, and perhaps smile at how the story continues unfinished, but still unfolding. Because every fossil lost is a reminder. The Earth always keeps a few secrets for itself.